Our next guest is someone that's very special to me, someone who I consider a big brother, someone who I've watched grow from having a dream to actually making his dreams a reality. He's someone who I've seen creating spaces for other creatives in the industry in more ways than one, not only as a producer, a director, but as a writer, and as someone who just wants to give creatives in the space that he's in an opportunity to shine. He's someone who has worked very hard to create the name that he has created. And I think that it's very important for us to be able to highlight people like this who give voices to people that are unheard. I'm honored to welcome a visionary in the world of film, Melgin Tafirenyika. Hailing from Zimbabwe, Melgin is a filmmaker, producer, and storyteller who's been making waves with his unique ability to bring compelling narratives to life on screen. From independent films to thought-provoking documentaries, Melgin's work is a masterclass in blending artistry with authenticity. His stories don't just entertain us, they challenge perspectives, spark conversations, and leave an indelible mark on audiences. Beyond his achievements in film, Melgin is a passionate advocate for creating opportunities and uplifting voices that often go unheard. His journey is a testament to resilience, creativity, and the power of staying true to your vision. So pour yourself a glass and join us as we dive into the world of storytelling, creativity, and everything in between with the incredibly talented Melgin Tafirenyika. Melgin is like my big brother, so welcome, big bro. Here's to you coming to the show. Cheers to that. Oh, that whatever you're having looks like it's nice. So let me start with this. You were talking to me earlier and you mentioned that this is your 5th anniversary, but I've known you being in the industry since I've known you since 2012, but you're already in the industry. Why is this the 5th year? Why are you considering this the 5th year?
No, actually the 5th anniversary is actually the name of the film. It's called Fifth Anniversary. So everything happens because of their 5th anniversary. They're trying to celebrate their 5th anniversary, but unfolded issues, twists and turns that happened, when a beautiful day turns out to be the worst night.
And I was telling you this before we started, and I said I'm going to surprise you with a specific question, right? And this is the question I was gonna ask you. I was like, your films and your storytelling, usually I find that it comes from what people would consider a feminist perspective, because a lot of your films deal with things like domestic abuse. If I think of my favorite film of yours, it's I Will Marry Myself, and that story is about a woman who ends up spending her own money to get married, right? Why is that perspective very important for you? Because not a lot of African filmmakers like to talk about things, especially male storytellers. You have your Chimamandas who come from a feminist perspective, but you are a male creative, writer, director, producer, who's talking from a feminist point of view, at least the way I see it. Why was that important to you?
So all my movies are not based on gender.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing, but they're just inspired by creativity. So if you look at I'll Marry Myself, the thing is we are trying to shape and mold our society based on family values.
Okay.
But before we talk about family values, the first port of call is the relationship and the bond between two people. And when those two people come together, then they create a family. So when you look at my movies, we call them the foundation of love and the issues that affect two people who are in love, which will result in infidelity, betrayal, love, hatred. And that's when we look like, okay, if you watch movies that I do, you'd think I'm promoting infidelity, because people, when they're doing whatever that they're doing, like in the movie, they are enjoying what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm not there to teach adults whether what they're doing, if they're good or bad, but I'm there to say, this is what I see. This is how I look at things. This is how things will end up being like. So it's up to you as an adult to choose between good and bad. But I'm not there to tell you what you're doing is good or what you're doing is bad. But after you see or you watch the movie, let your conscience judge you.
And okay, so tell me a little bit about your upbringing and how that affected the type of work that you create.
So for me, like I said, it's nothing to do with my upbringing because you said you started knowing me in 2012, started writing movies. That time I was single. I got married in 2018. So from 2012 until 2018, it means I had 5 years of writing films, which are marriage related when I was actually single. So the movies, they are not related to my upbringing, but they're just inspired by creativity. But since you asked my upbringing to answer to that person, my dream was to become an actor, nothing more, nothing less. And I never thought one day I'll become a movie writer or a movie director. I didn't want it. It was not even a part of my DNA. So being a writer, a director, it was a coincidence because when I went to acting school, when they are giving you what you call unprepared monologue, that's when I came up with the idea of like, okay, Mel, tell us if you could be something for a day, what is it that you'd want to be and why? And to myself, I only had like 5 minutes to think about something. And I'm like, oh, what is it that I would want to be like a day and why? I'm like, okay, if I could be something for a day, I would want to be a woman. And they said, like, why? Because I would want to marry myself, trying to look at the space where men don't really value marriage these days. So that was my question to escape from that question. So after that session, people saying, Mel, don't you think that's a good film title if you write a movie called I'll Marry Myself? I'm like, you think so? I'm like, well, me, I'm not a writer myself. I'm just an actor. So people started, telling me that, no, it would be a good movie. Think about it. I'll marry myself. So I started telling people I'm writing a movie called I'll Marry Myself. And people are like, interesting. What is happening? So as I was asking people, doing my own research, I'm like, okay, let me give an attempt. And after a few years, I then came up with the movie I'll Marry Myself. That's how it was birthed. So it has nothing to do with me having any bond or any experience related to the film, but everything was inspired by creativity.
People don't know this, but knowing your background from a personal perspective, I know that you're one of the very first Zimbabwean producers who was on DSTV. And that was a very difficult feat. I mean, back at that time, it wasn't something that, it was like getting on Netflix now. What is Netflix now? Being on DSTV was a big thing. How did that impact your career?
So, I mean, before we went on DSTV, our movies, in terms of quality, they were not that good. But thanks to Mnet Mod Choice, they gave us that window to say, okay, guys, let's see what you can do without our help. And we gave them our first few films that we did, that include I'll Marry Myself, Sour Milk, and other films. Then DSTV said, okay, guys, if we give you a budget, can we see the transition of how best you can actually make movies?
They actually gave you a budget?
Yes, they actually gave us a budget to say, can you please go and shoot these movies? Let's see the improvement or the transition from you shooting on your own and you shooting when we give you the budget. But apparently those films, they were only exclusive to DSTV. So many people didn't get to watch them if you did not have DSTV. So the impact was so good because now we started attracting other filmmakers within, I should say, the Zambezi region, which is countries that borders within Zambezi River. So the channel called Zambezi Magic. So that Zambezi Magic, Zambezi crosses through from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia, and other countries. So our movies, they were now showing within that region of Zambezi River, which is like 5 countries or 6 countries, right? So that being said, we started connecting with other filmmakers from those countries because they were watching our movies, and we started connecting, and we've created some synergy for collaboration, especially with the Zambian filmmakers, because most of the films that we're showing on Zambezi Magic, they were from Zambia. So with that being said, they begin to watch our movies as well, and we started connecting with the Zambian film producers, hoping that next year we'll bring our vision to fruition and collaborate producing movies in Zambia through the connection of our movies being on DSTV.
Which is good, and I think also another thing that people don't realize is that your movies provide social commentary, and like I mean, you said that they're just coming from creative, not necessarily your own experiences in your own personal life, but they're coming from creativity. But they do delve a lot into social commentary and social issues, right? And you mentioned yourself the movie I Will Marry Myself, for me, which really highlights the concept of what marriage is for an African woman in terms of it's considered an accomplishment. I understand you said that it's a creative thing, but what sort of pushes you to think of those social issues that you can address in an entertaining way, of course, that you create in your movies?
So I normally use what they call provocative entertainment. So I try to find the universal language that everyone can speak without using dialogue. And that language is love, right? So everywhere you go, we affected the same. So there are things that I look at that, okay, if I were to write a movie, yes, the story is about African film, but how can I resonate with someone who's not from Africa? We all feel pain, despite where you come from, despite what language you feel. We all feel pain. We all cry. We all, at some point, need to be loved. We all need to be heard. So I then look for a story to say, okay, if someone who's in America, they can say, okay, this is an African story, but whatever that person is going through, maybe being backbiting from a family or being rejected from someone that you love, despite where you are, you feel the pain. So when I begin to gather my storyline, I then have to do research on stories that affect everyone, despite from culture or continent. So that's how I package my thing. Yes, they are inspired by creativity, but that creativity is backed by a factual fact of what is happening within a larger community, not just one-sided community.
Which then brings me to one of my other favorite movies of yours, called 206 Bones, which really discusses the issue of domestic violence, right? And I remember watching it thinking that, in Africa, it's very common. I'll say this in Shona. We'll put some captions into this just to explain what I'm saying. Usually, when an African woman is in a relationship and things like this happen, the general consensus is no, regardless of what's happening, right? But you're looking at a woman who's being abused, who then comes back home in a coffin or whatever. Of course, that's not how that story ended. But I'm talking about there are stories where we hear things of that, When you tell a story like that, and then you have what our culture will say, that's not our norm in terms of telling women to be able to leave a situation that's bad. It doesn't encourage that, but you're showing how that should be encouraged. How do you draw the line between being culturally adaptive, but at the same time making sure that you're giving the right resources to people to be able to maneuver situations like that?
So if I tell you on 206 Bonds, I told myself that for the first time, I want to write something which is not marriage related, but because I feel like I found it so easy to write movies like love films. And before I even knew it, when I'm done writing the script, it's somehow it is marriage related. So when I wrote 206 Bonds, I was trying to encourage people to invest back into their families, right? Because you realize that in Zimbabwean setup, a lot of people, they also come from a rural background, but when they've made it in a big city, they start moving with flashy cars, doing this. Probably maybe it happens that the person is normal. Then people realize that, oh, there's no place where we can put a coffin and he's being buried in his rural town, right? So people kind of neglect where they came from, especially from the Zimbabwean aspect, if they are living in Zimbabwe, but they are living in low-density suburb. So most of the people, you realize in Harare, they are living large, but when they go to their rural areas,
It's not. It
imagine
doesn't. It's not the
bathing in
same.
that,
Yeah.
bathing in that house where you can say, "Hey, what's up? What's happening?" You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's a complete different experience. Like, yeah, I get
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
mean.
But if you go back to the urban town, you are now living. So I was trying to encourage people, which is why you see when the lady was chased away by the husband,
Yeah.
she went to her mother's house, and the mother like, where do you want to fit yourself? I live in one room. Like, then that was a
Because
wake
she
up
didn't
call
give
for her
back
to think,
to her
yeah,
community, to her background.
to
Yeah.
feel like, oh, I should do something for my mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I had done something proper for my mother, I wouldn't have been struggling
In
with
this
a place to stay.
situation. Yeah.
So in today's world, you see most people are living in diaspora, right? Living big, but now people can spend 10 years, 20 years without going back home. The reason it's not like they don't want to go back, but because the bed that the mother bought them when they were in primary school or secondary school is still the same bed that they're going to go
sleep
and
when
sleep
they're
on.
sleeping, and that
So they
doesn't
don't
work
want to,
anymore. Yeah.
yeah. So they don't want to go back. So I was writing that film from that element to say, okay, I want to show the what to call it, the society. That's number one. Number two, I was saying you can plan your life, everything to move according to the how you want, but the life in the universe, it has its own way of testing you, which is why that lady, she ended up staying with a friend who was a prostitute.
Yeah.
She didn't buy that, but she was in a situation where she was now vulnerable because
It was
now
what was
everyone
mandatory at the
wants a piece
time.
of her.
Yeah, and I think that the most important thing, my takeaway from that movie, is watching how she struggled. Because even without giving too much of that story, I remember the friend that she went and started staying with also had her own background that was difficult. But you're watching someone who's dealing with that and then having to take care of a friend who probably had it better than them initially, but because they, and those things are things that people don't talk about.
True, 100% true.
Let me ask you about the movie that's coming up, The Sixth Commandment. Explain to me what inspired that, and just a brief idea of when it's coming, when we can expect it, and yeah, just a little bit about that.
So before I answer, do you know what the Sixth Commandment say?
Well, I had to look it up. It says "Thou shalt not kill," right? And I'm trying to think how that will translate into to a movie.
All right. So initially, when we created this movie, it had a different title called "Can of Worms," right? So in "Can of Worms," I was just showing what people can do or what one can do to win a boyfriend or a girlfriend. That some people, they can go to the extent of killing someone, in such a way like their obsession.
Okay.
So I was looking at the story from that angle, that a friend went to kill the sister because he loved a guy.
That's interesting.
Yes, so she went to those extremes. But surprisingly, the person who was dating the boyfriend that she really wanted ended up being the one being accused of the murder of the sister that she killed.
Now you're making me want to watch this movie. When is it coming out?
Yeah, it's coming out end of May, early June, thereabout.
And you shot it. Where did you shoot it?
So we shot this film in Zimbabwe. That was the last film we shot from all the movies that you've seen. So if you've loved Marry Myself, Fifth Anniversary, now think of all those films compressed together, and you'll be almost on half of what the Sixth Commandment is all about.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you a couple of, in terms of your work, I'll ask the last one. Like, you talked about the movie Fifth Anniversary. Like, tell me a bit about that one.
So fifth anniversary, like I said, my movies are inspired by creativity. And I didn't want people to know that this one was inspired by a joke.
Okay.
Yeah. This one was inspired by there was a joke where people say, imagine you get a call from your wife and you don't know that she's your wife. Then you are in the bathroom. Then the moment she calls you, like, hey, what's up? Then you just go like, hey, I'll call you when Fat One come out of the bathroom.
Oh my God.
So people always
That's
like,
comedic.
oh, come on, how can you say that to your wife?
Mm-hmm.
So to myself, I'm like, okay, I think I can write a movie based on this joke. So what I just did on fifth anniversary, I then have to create an image of what women want on a man, the man who does the bedding, the man who spoils them, the man who cooks for them, open the door for them, who does all these beautiful things. And so if you look at the movie, it starts like that until the women gets to a point of like, wow, this is the man that I
Of
want.
my dreams,
then I had to go and burst the bubble where now the woman, she bought a cell phone for the husband to surprise him on the
fifth
anniversary.
Yeah.
Only to realize that when the guy is receiving the call coming from the lady, she's in the bathroom, and the guy says, let me call you back after my wife finishes taking a bath.
Oh,
and actually, the guy is talking to the wife. Then
drama.
The drama started. And from that part, one thing leads into another, until we get to the whole event, which was led by fifth anniversary.
Oh gosh. Okay, and I've noticed that. I follow you, so I've noticed that recently you've started incorporating your wife into your skits. There was one particular skit that I really like found funny, the one where with the chips and the directions. Right? How does she feel being a part of your dream? Did she come into your Did she come into your relationship wanting to be like a part of it, or did she just think, oh, this is what my husband does and it's fine?
So basically, my wife, she told me that she wanted to go and study fine arts.
Okay.
And she didn't find a place to go to the university to study fine arts. So she was telling her mother that she wanted to become an actress. So, but because of that, she ended up dropping everything. Now she's a makeup artist. So I always try to tell her that, listen, come, let's do this. I know that maybe acting in a movie can be too hectic for you, or maybe it can be overwhelming, but let's just do like a small skit, because this used to be your first dream, something that you really wanted to do. So sometimes you end up saying, oh, okay, well, let's do it, but I have to keep pushing it to say, hey, come, let's do it. So here
the nerves kick in.
Sorry?
Then her nerves kick in.
Yes. So her doing it to be just a way of like, I'm reminding her that it's kind of blackmailing to say, hey, you said you wanted to be an actor, so you can't even act a 1 minute skit. Okay. So that's how I begin to start incorporating it in skits. But she is actually a professional makeup artist. So doing those skits is just those things that we just do to, just to show audience that, hey, we are not too serious. Because, when you become a writer, people, when they see you, they're like, oh, he's a writer, the director is here. But trying to do those things is trying to break the ice and say, hey, guys, I'm also human, with 206 bones. So don't think that being a writer, director,
you love the 206 bones analogy.
And do you know why I came up with the title 206 bones?
Why?
Because every human being consists of 206 bones. So what I was trying to say to that guy is, treat me like I'm human.
Oh, okay. And I know one of the lead actress in that show, she's someone that I was very close to. And I remember that being her dream, being an actress before she moved to Cape Town. And so to watch, I actually didn't know that you guys worked together until I watched the movie. And I was like, I think we had a conversation. I was like, oh, look, and I think that it's very, and this is something that I said in the intro. I was like, it's very good. It's very great that I feel like you literally have given opportunities to these creatives that don't necessarily would have never had the opportunity, because we come from a country where the arts are not necessarily celebrated. They're a hobby. So you have to have a standard job, which is accountant, doctor, teacher, nurse. And then if you want to do acting, it's like, oh, it's what you do in your spare time. But you've given these people the chance to be seen. Now that you've left the country and you're in the diaspora, where do you see yourself in terms of continuing to create those opportunities for people that are still back home?
So, it's so painful to realize how much talent is in Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the people, they're just gonna drift away from their love for their passion, which is acting, because like you said, it doesn't put food on your table.
Yeah.
So my wish is that if I could work hard, or maybe if I could get a bit of budget,
mm-hmm.
and try to create micro budget movies
mm-hmm.
with those people who are back home, as a way of encouraging them to say, hey guys,
it's possible.
Maybe the industry might not pay as you expect, but because you are living in a global world where the digital industry is taking over, maybe if you could shoot a movie, maybe someone in Kenya or someone in America or someone in Japan, they might look at you and like your facial, your content, whatever. Yeah. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But at least we are living in a global world whereby we've seen it in South Africa, where people just handpicked from the streets start working with Beyonce, those dancing guys, another kid by Chris Brown. So there are a bunch of people who've been picked up through viral videos on social media, even talking about the TikTok guy. What is his name? Was it Kihab?
Which one?
The highest guy.
Oh, yeah, the tall. Yeah, I know who you talk. The tall, dark guy. Yeah. I know.
Yes. Yeah. It was through TikTok when they now featured in movies like Bad Boys 4 and doing a lot of commercials with big A-lists. So I'm now looking things from that approach that, okay, in Zim, there might not be that opportunity, but that mustn't stop us from working, because now we are living in a global world whereby you put your movie on YouTube. It's not only for Zimbabwean people, but it also spreads to other places where you can't even go, or you can't even connect yourself from the people who are in those areas. So my wish is to work hard or get a funding and create something where we can begin to shoot micro budget films as a way of giving back to my community, whilst I'm also working with myself to establish myself as a filmmaker right here in Canada.
So I'll tell you something that people don't know. I know you actually have your own production company, Light Image Productions, right? So a lot of it, people will see in front of the camera roles, which is acting and so forth. But there's a lot of creativity that goes behind the show, like executive producing, lighting, camera, sound engineering, all of that stuff. How do you also curate those professions within because that's another thing where people don't know where to go. So you having a production company, how are you able to source those sort of, because not a lot of people will know where to find those opportunities?
So the most important thing is like any other business, right? At first you have to do it yourself until you get, because remember, what is going to make you get people to work with is not because you're trying to create a film. People, they have to believe in your vision. So whoever is going to come and work with you, it means they believe in your vision. They're trying to make your vision come to life. So looking for people to work with, it was not something that I just woke up tomorrow and have got people to work with. But it was a process whereby I had to make enough mistakes. And by making those mistakes, people could see the transition of making those mistakes. It's just like a kid writing in examination that the first test, he got maybe 20 out of 50. Then the next one is 25 out of 50. The next one is third out of it. So you could slowly see that there is a transition. So a lot of people begin to believe that, okay, if we come and support this guy based on the transition that he's trying to make, then we'll end up being there. So it was so hard for me to get people to work with. So what I would do is there's a movie that I posted on YouTube yesterday. It's called 30 February. So this movie, it has so many mistakes, this movie.
Is this the one we were talking about before the interview?
Sorry?
Is this the one we were talking about before the interview? The one with the nightmares?
Yes. So I posted it 2 days ago. The reason why I posted it is because I realized, like the question asked me, there are people who are out there who are scared to start, who are scared to take that bold step. And I said, okay, let me take this film and put it on our YouTube, as bad as it is, to show people that what you are seeing today, this is the result. It started from here. If I did not make that movie, I probably wouldn't have been talking about me, because probably I would have been left the industry a long time ago. But as bad as that film is, but which is not bad, but as bad as it is compared to other films which are on our YouTube channel, that movie, it opened doors for me of opportunity, because people say, okay, if you can do this, just 3 people, it attracted so many people to say, okay, Mel, we've seen what you have done with 3 people. What can we do if we are 6? Then other people started coming in. Then we started improving. So the most important thing for me was to say, how can I become better than the last film? So every time I would check a film, I would go to people, guys, watch, see some reviews. I remember there's a time I came to you actually, and I said I need some background music to use on my on my movie. I don't know if you still remember.
I remember,
right?
That.
Yeah. So it will be just a matter of starting something and start looking for people who can believe in the dream. So you can actually say, okay, maybe now I'm here in Canada, I can go and say, hey guys, this is what I've done before in Africa. Do you want to be part and parcel of my dream? If they say yes, good for you. If they say no, you just have to keep knocking, keep moving, and keep growing.
Okay, so you've just made me think of something. I noticed that you have worked with the artist that you worked with in the movie that you put up 2 days ago. You've worked on another film?
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of it. Which movie was that? I've watched a lot of your movies. I don't remember the one that she was particularly...
206 Bonds. She was in 206 Bonds.
She wasn't the lead in that. She was the... Which character did she... I know that the...
Friend. She was girlfriend to pastor.
Exactly. I remember. Now, how do you how do you constantly use this the same actors, actresses, or whatever? And how do you audition new talent for your movies?
So like I said, I was looking for people that can work with me. So over the years, when I was working with those people, I was, because I come from an acting background, so I was also teaching them how to act. Okay. So they had trust in me to say, okay, by me going to Melgin's production, maybe it's not a high-end film, but because of the experience of how he's going to make us deliver our dialogue or bring the life from the script, people had the trust from me. So if you were to look from that angle, I gained so much people's trust because I started working with them before they've done anything. And we've walked through that journey together, holding hands.
So it's like a safe space.
So like, to surprise you, the guy who was the father who was killed in the beginning of the movie,
yes, he
is actually the lead actor in Chiwombiro. Yes, and he's also another supporting lead in Chapungo.
I've noticed that a lot of your talent is like they overlap into different films, which is something that I find, like, I mean, it's not uncommon in the industry, because I mean, if you look at all the Tyler Perry productions, there's a revolving door of actors and actresses that are typical. You'll find them in in a Tyler Perry production. So that's not uncommon in the industry, but it means that you've built a relationship with them where they feel safe to be saying, okay, you know what, if I work this with this director, with this writer, with this producer, this is going to come out correctly. Now, my next question will come down to, we've talked a lot about so many movies that you've made, and I'm trying to think, like, how do you source your funding for these movies?
So basically, I'm the executive producer. So since I'm an actor, I would have to go and get some acting gigs, get paid, save the money, and do a return investment that money into my own projects. So all the movies that I've done, they were self-funded.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That is a lot of investment in yourself.
Yeah, it's a lot, and there's more still need to be done. So when I tell people that what you are seeing in my movies is not the best that I can do, but it's the best I can do given the resources that I'm having. Yeah. Because when you don't have money, you compromise on the production value of your movie, because everything that you're doing, you are thinking about money. Maybe I'm supposed to go and get an office, and the office is probably 20 km away from where I'm shooting the house scenes. I'll end up saying, okay, guys, can't we create an office scene in this house, so that instead of us moving to that location, a bunch of us, then we'll save time, and we only have this amount of limited time, because everything is calculated from the money that you have to feed the people for a certain number of days. So we cannot afford to
deviate from that.
Yeah, to even go beyond the number of days that we have. So most films that you see, we don't shoot them for more than 4 days, all of them.
Even 206 pounds.
Yep.
Yo, that's a lot. Like, I mean, like for the way that the movie came out, you would think it's, you have these Hollywood movies that are shot over 3, 4, 5 months, and it feels like that because the time frame, even from the storyline, the time frame from the beginning of the movie to the end, it's a long time frame. So for that to have been done only in 4 days, that's a big accomplishment.
Yeah. So like now I'm developing a new film. It's called Quench the Fire. I won't talk much about it. It's called Quench the Fire. But now I was bridging the gap between living in North America and coming from Africa. So I wanted something that can relate to all the people living in North America and to all the people live in Africa.
And you're going to shoot that here?
That's my plan, but that is if I get the budget to produce it. I feel like the movie, it's close to my heart to say, after 5 years of waiting, of shooting movies, learning, reading, trying to surpass all the movies that I've done, I'm like, if I shoot it here, that would be the cry of my heart. But if not, then I would really have to look at probably shooting it in Africa. Depends on what kind of people am I gonna get who are going to come on board, and what kind of resources am I gonna put to bring that film into fruition.
Yo, I mean, I could talk to you all day, but yeah, the time is limited. But I'll say this: I'm so proud of everything that you've done, and it's very interesting to see where you've come from. Having known you, like I said, I've known you since 2012, and it's where we come from. It's very difficult to be able to be a creative and to get things done. Number one, and to also having, I also know your family, your brother Nigel. I know your mom. There's a comment I was reading from your mom, probably maybe from 2012, that said something to the effect of, "You see how much I promote you. One day when you make it, don't forget me, right?" and it's so interesting to see how your mom is supportive, and that's very uncommon, especially from that. What would you say is your takeaway, and what would be your advice for other creatives that are coming after you?
Well, everything starts with the family, right? So what I can tell to other creatives who are coming is, it's not going to be easy. but it can be done. You just have to let the voice of your vision speak louder than the voice of your adversity. There are going to be people who are going to give you headaches, but there are going to also going to be people who just want to support your vision. So whatever that you have in your mind, as long as you can dream it, you can have it. You just have to keep moving, keep knocking, and keep growing until you get there. And never give up.
Yeah, and I'm grateful you didn't give up on yourself, because you've given a lot of art, creatives and a lot of people in the industry, in not just in Zimbabwe but in Africa as well, the belief and the hope that it is possible and that it can be done. Here on Light Bulbs and Wine, I believe in giving people flowers for while they're still alive and while they're still working, because I believe that it's important for people to know that they're being acknowledged and that they're being seen, number one. Number two, I believe that it's important for people to get their flowers, because it's important for you to not feel that it is unrecognized or that you get tired, because it can be very tiring and you have a burnout and you get to a point sometimes where you think, is this ever going to happen? Because maybe your dream is not coming out the way that you did. And so, there's this saying that I always say, and that saying is, the life I live now is a dream for someone else. But it might not be where I see myself in the next 20, 30 years. But where I am right now, if someone was to look at me, they'd be like, I dream of that. But for me, I see this is just the beginning of something that I see is bigger. Or for you, you've got a vision that you have for yourself. So I want to tell you that you are seen, you're acknowledged. And for being a pioneer, I mean, we have a lot of filmmakers that come from our country, that never got the opportunity, because maybe social media wasn't there at the time, to be seen or to be acknowledged. And you're giving a voice because when people see your work, they're going to be like, oh, who else is in Zimbabwe? Who else is in Africa who does work like this? And this is where we're going to get the funding. This is where we're going to get the resources that we're going to need to do better. So I want to say thank you for what you do, and thank you for continuing to have hope, even though sometimes, like you say, it's difficult. So thank you for coming to the show. And like, whenever you have anything that you want to talk about, give us a call and you can come through.
Thank you so much, Nigel. It is my pleasure hearing from you, and thank you so much for the opportunity of getting to ask me questions and make me realize to say, hey, Mel, we have a movie that is on pending. Get yourself up from the chair and let's get it running.
Let's get it done. So here's to Light Image Productions. And I pray that there's so much more success coming, and that you will continue to get that support that you need to be able to continue to do the work that you do.
Thank you so much, my brother. It's my pleasure having
No problem.
you.
And I'll continue to talk to you, and I'm grateful for you coming to the show.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks a lot, hey. Hey guys, so in this section, I'm going to talk about justice for my life. And this section is going to talk about, in this section, I'm going to talk about what it means to not give up on yourself and to give yourself and your dreams justice. In today's guest, we spoke to Melgin, who, despite the odds of being a creative from Africa, from Zimbabwe particularly, has constantly chosen to not give up on his dream. And he's given his dream some form of justice, in the sense that regardless of everything that was against him, he has chosen to make it impossible to fail at his dream. Now, a lot of us go through life thinking that when the world is against you, or when things don't look like the way that they should, the easiest thing is to give up. And I've known Melgin since 2012, and it's interesting to see how, even when it didn't seem like it was making sense financially, didn't seem like it was making sense in any kind of way, he still chose to go on. A lot of us with an African background, you'll know that you will leave your family, you will leave your background to go to live in the diaspora, because it's where your dreams can flourish. But a lot of us don't have that opportunity. We come from places that will not give us or afford us the opportunity to be able to 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 leave home. And no one talks about how when you leave home, it's not easy. No one talks about how when you leave home, you don't have your family and you're going to do Christmases and birthdays and all of that without those people that you consider near and dear to your life. But you're doing this because a part of you just has to give your dreams justice. A part of you just has to give your life some sort of meaning that shows you that you're not living in vain. So when I say justice for my life, justice for my dreams, I'm saying, what are you willing to do? How uncomfortable are you willing to make yourself that you are willing to make yourself excruciatingly uncomfortable so that at least your dream can survive, that you give justice to your dream. A lot of times when someone dies or if someone's murdered, you'll hear statements like justice for so-and-so and then the question becomes, what does that justice look like? Because sometimes that justice doesn't bring that person back. But when I say justice for my life, I'm saying it gives the opportunity for my dream to still live or to thrive or to be bigger than it was or than it could ever be. A lot of you who know me, one of my biggest dreams was to meet Brandy Norwood. And I haven't met her once, twice. I've met her a few times, and I can tell you that for me was a dream. And I've made it happen not because of anything of myself that has made me worthy, but because I realized that I imagined it, and it has to happen because I can see it in my head. I remember dating someone who said to me once that they thought that my ambition was crazy. Because on the first day that I met Brandy, I remember I was with that person at that concert, and it was something that was never supposed to happen, but we made it happen. Now I'm going to ask you this question as I leave you today and say to you, what is it that you're willing to do to give justice to your dreams? What is it that you're willing to do to make yourself uncomfortable as a service to the dreams that you have? Because there should be justice for your dreams. They shouldn't die. And if they have died, what are you doing to give them justice, to give your dreams some form of worthiness, to say they weren't all for nothing? So with that, I'll say my light bulb moment today was, I really honestly have to learn to constantly give my dreams and my ambitions the justice that they deserve, because in it all, that's all you have. A cemetery is a place where there's a lot of people who died with a lot of potential. And I never want to be one of those people whose dreams died with me when I died. I want my dreams to live with me when I live, because when I then die, they continue to live for those people who see them and think and understand that when you make those choices to give your dreams justice, they thrive, they grow, and they flourish. So with that, I will say, as I toast to you, my audience for today, have justice or give justice to your dreams. Don't give up on them because they came to you from a place that you do not understand. And with that, I say good night, good day, good morning, whatever time it is that you're watching.